Welcome to the Savant Adc demonstration series. In this video, we will be helping our partners set up their demo environments. So let's roll. We created this video because our feedback from partners in the field indicated that some of the technical aspects of installing the ADC product went beyond their expertise. So in this video, I will speak slow and use a lot of pictures. Alright, I'm just kidding. Seriously, we do appreciate your commitment and willingness to partner with us. And our goal will be to show you how to collect some important information about your system, walk through the installation of Iis and SQL Server Express 2012, walk through the installation of Savant Adc, and explain how to roll back the demo database so that you can begin each demo with the same information every time. Creating the Savant Adc demo environment, it is important to review how your current PC, laptop, or server is configured. For our demo, I will be using a Windows 8.1 virtual machine. For doing demos, we recommend that you use either Windows 7 or 8, or if you are running off of a server, Windows Server 2012. The first step is to ensure that you have all the current files necessary to set up the demo environment. These files will be supplied either through a download via our FTP site or on a CD or thumb drive. Let me take a couple of minutes to explain these files. To assist in collecting information and prepping for the install, Savant provides a pre-installation worksheet. Taking the time to walk through the worksheet and fill out the data will ease the install process. We also provide you with SQL Server 2012 Express and the SQL Management Studio. The Express product is a scaled-down version of SQL Server and is ideal for demo environments. Notice that we have both the 64 and 32-bit versions. The goal is to set up Savant Adc, and the installation program is right here. When the installation is complete, you will need to enter the activation key, and this information is found in the unlocking key text file. Upon entering the activation key, the ADC solution is ready for use. At this point, you can review the user documentation and online videos to learn how the product works. You will notice that the sum of the files reference Radical Rakes. Radical Rakes is our fictitious demo company. Now you can create your own demo environment. However, we have built a complete demo environment around the Radical Rakes company. By running the demo DB SQL script, the entire Radical Rakes demo database is created in seconds. We also provide a pre-written demo script and import files that you can use to familiarize yourself with the database and then tailor it to your unique demo style. The second step is to determine whether you are running the 32 or 64-bit versions of the Windows OS. This is important because it will drive the version of SQL Server that we will be using. To get this information, we will need to launch System from the control panel. In Windows 8, you can right-click on the Start Screen icon and either launch the control panel and then select the System option, or as you can see in the pop-up menu, we can select System directly. There are two pieces of information that we will use on this screen. First, we need the system type. Notice that the system type on my computer indicates that the 64-bit version of Windows has been installed, running on a 64-bit processor. This means that I can install the 64-bit version of SQL Server. If you have a computer that is running the 32-bit version of the OS on an x86 processor, then you will need to install the x86 or 32-bit versions of SQL. Second, for the ADC install, I will need the computer name, so make a note of it for future reference. Now, the final step is to make sure that you have a user with administration privileges and a password. Because the installation requires setting up Windows services, this process requires an administrator. And a quirky aspect of the ADC install is that the administrator needs to have a password. From the control panel, you can launch the User Account Information screen. In User Accounts, we see that my user account has admin privileges and is password protected, so I am good to go. Chances are that if you are using your PC or laptop, you are already an administrator, and if not, your IT department will need to upgrade your user account. If you need to add a password, do so through the Make Changes to My Account link. By the way, a password is only necessary for the ADC install. Once it is complete, you can remove the password. Optionally, you can create a new dummy administrator user and assign it a password. Collecting this information is important to a successful install. In the next section, we will be installing Iis. With our initial information collected, we now need to install Iis. Iis is Microsoft's version of a web server called Internet Information Server. This is required for Savant Adc because the ADC mobile device applications run in the Internet browser and thus have to be loaded onto a web server. Your customers will typically load this on a Windows server, and you can do the same. However, the Windows 7 and 8 desktop platforms have a local version of Iis that you can install. To install Iis, right-click on the Start window icon. You can select Control Panel and then Programs, or you can scroll up the menu and select Programs and Features. Select Turn Windows Features on or off. Scroll down the options until you find the Internet Information Services options and check that box. You can expand the Iis options to see what features are available, but for our purposes, we just need the default features already selected. Click OK to install Iis. The installation is complete, so let's close our open windows. At this point, we should run a quick test to make sure that Iis was installed properly. To do this, we need to click on the Start window icon to bring up the Metro User Interface. Scroll down to the Apps section and select the Internet Information Service Manager. The Iis Manager gives us the ability to view and configure the installed web server. Expand the Iis server and sites, and click on the default website. You can browse the default website by clicking on the browser port 80 selection over on the right side. Now, Internet Explorer will launch the site and display the default web page. Notice at the top that the URL says localhost. Iis has configured my system to use port 80 as the default port for localhost. This is important information because when the ADC install runs, a new site will be created and port 80 will be reassigned to it. With Iis properly installed, we can close all windows and prepare to install SQL Server Express. Finally, we've collected the information and filled out the pre-installation worksheet. Iis has been installed along with SQL Server Express 2012 and SQL Management Studio. Now we are ready to install the Savant Adc application. The installation will first check to see if our computer needs the .NET Framework version 4. If you have a current Windows operating system, then you probably have the appropriate framework, and the installation will bypass this process. If not, simply follow the prompts and the .NET Framework will be installed. The install program will then check for Crystal reports. If you have the ADC version of Crystal reports or newer of Crystal installed, then the install program will move forward. If Crystal is not installed, follow the prompts. Once the .NET Framework and Crystal are installed, the next step will be to install Savant Adc. For our demo system, we will be installing the server version. The server version will install the database, admin console applications, and the Iis applications. So let's run the install program using the icon on my desktop. Now I'm going to right-click on it and select Run as Administrator. The user account control, I'm going to say yes. And the first thing that comes up is the wizard to look and see if the prerequisites are being met. I'm going to click Next. And what this screen tells me is, first, the good news is that the .NET Framework is up to date, so we don't need to install that. However, Crystal Reports does need to be installed. So I'm going to select Next and launch the Crystal Reports Setup Wizard. I'm going to accept the defaults. And now the Crystal Reports will take a couple of minutes to install. Okay, the Crystal Reports has been successfully installed, so I'm going to click on Finish. And now we're going to install the Savant Adc applications. Now remember, we're going to be installing the server applications because this will load the database, the applications on Iis server, and the admin console. Now, the difference between the server and the client installations is if I was installing just the client, it would assume that there's already server applications installed, and the client would just install the admin console applications and ask to point to the correct database. So select Server. Now I'm going to install the application and the database. Now this next piece of information is very important. Remember, when we were collecting information, some of the information that we were looking for was both the computer name and the username. Now we're going to be installing services onto our computer that Savant Adc needs to operate. And we need to have an administrative user who has a password. So in this particular case, on my pre-installation worksheet, I can see my computer name is called War Machine. Which, by the way, that name, just in case you're wondering, all of our network here internally is based on Marvel Comics, and all of our computers are characters from the Marvel comic universe, and War Machine, of course, is one of those characters. Now I'm going to input my username. Now notice I'm putting a slash there between the computer name and the username. And my username is my email address. Now I'm going to input the password for that particular user. And now I'm going to enter the SQL Server name. Now if you remember from our previous video, because I chose the default instance, it assigned my SQL Server name as my computer name. So all I need to do is type in War Machine again. I'm going to accept the default database name. I can change this if I want to, but in this case I'm just going to accept it. And I'm going to enter the password associated with my system administrator or SA user. I'm going to accept the default location for the programs. And we're ready to install. This screen tells us that Savant was successfully installed. Now, if you had encountered an error message would pop up, and you didn't have to roll back the install. The setup wizard will tell you to roll back the installation, and you'll have to run the installation again once you figure out what the problem was. In this case, because it's successful, I'm just going to click on Finish. So now Savant ADC has been successfully installed on our computer. I now need to enter an activation key and test that, and we'll do that in our next section. In this section, we want to accomplish two goals. First, we want to insert the activation or unlocking key so that we can use the system. For your demo environment, we have created a fictitious company called Radical Rakes. Radical Rakes manufactures and distributes robotic lawn care products. The activation key will activate a single user license for Radical Rakes. Now, you can create your own unique demo environment with a different company. However, if you do that, you'll need to contact us to get a new unlocking key. Our second goal will be to test the install by launching the admin console as well as the mobile device applications via the browser. To enter an unlocking key, simply launch the Savant admin console. If the product has not been unlocked, then you will receive an error message asking for the key. Now what I'm going to do is get the unlocking key. I've got it in a text file here. And I'm just going to do a copy-paste. And click OK. Now if it's activated, it's going to give me the login, and we've got a default login called sysadmin. There's no password required for this initial login, and the warehouse is just a single warehouse right now set up called main, and we're going to accept that and click OK. Now it's telling me I have an invalid operator or password, and that's because I mistyped sysadmin. At least the security is working, right? Okay, and here we go. It's successfully launched our Savant admin console. Now here I can go ahead and begin setting up the system. In the user documentation, we'll take you step by step setting this up. However, you don't need to do this because we've also provided a SQL script that will load all this setup information into your system and create some transactional history for you automatically. Now that I know that the admin console is working correctly, I'm just going to log out, and now I'm going to test the mobile device. Now remember, we tested originally the Iis by going into the Iis Manager, and we're going to do the same thing here. I'm going to go into my Metro desktop and click over to Iis. And remember, when we were here earlier, there was just one site called Default Website, but now you can see we've created a new website called Savant ADC Scanner. And if I click on it, you can see that it is now taken over the port 80, as I told you it would, and that this has already started. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is just click on here to launch the application. And if everything's working okay, I should see the Savant ADC splash screen and then the login. Now I'm going to type in my username again. And because passwords aren't required yet, we haven't set that part of the security up, there's no password prompt here. Again, the site is main. I click the login button. And there we go. Savant ADC has successfully been installed on this demo system. Now in our next video, I'm going to show you how to install the demo database and how to do the rollback so that every time you do a demo, you can just rerun that SQL Server script and roll back the database to a previous point where you can begin a demo again. In our final video section, we're going to look at running a SQL Server script. The script has two purposes. First, it loads the demo data into Savant ADC. This means that you don't have to run through 1 to 4 hours of setup time. As you will see when we run the script, this is a significant time saver. The downside, however, is that when you actually go through the setup and configuration, you learn all about the capabilities of the ADC solution. The second purpose of the script is that it allows you to roll back the data after doing a demo to its original pre-demo state. The script not only contains setup and configuration data, but it also has some transactional history as well and serves as a great starting point for doing a demo. The idea is that when you finish a demo, you can run the script and reset the demo environment to its original state. By resetting your data, your demos are consistent and there aren't those data-related surprises that can ruin a demo. Let's begin by launching ADC and looking at its current state. First, let's look at users. And we provide you with some seed data that you need in order to get the system operational. And you can see that we have one operator ID. And we have one role. If I go into warehouse setup and look at bin locations, we have one bin location set up. I can go into inventory control and product inquiry. And when I do a lookup, you'll see that there are no products. And the same thing when I go into receiving and purchase order inquiry. There aren't any POs. And there's no sales order data either. So now I'm going to log out and I'm going to run the SQL Server script that will populate our Savant ADC environment with the demo data. Now to do that, I've got to go to the Start window, bringing up the Metro interface. I need to scroll over until I see SQL Management Studio and launch that application. Once connected, I'm going to expand the databases and highlight Savant ADC. Then I'm going to go over to File, and I'm going to open a file. Now this file that I'm opening is a SQL Server script that will automatically create all of our demo data. And that should be demo DB add transactions to new DB. Now with that script showing, and Savant ADC again highlighted here, I can click the execute button, and you'll see that it'll run very, very quickly and automatically tell me that the query executed successfully. So now I'm just going to shrink this down for a minute. I'm going to relaunch Savant ADC. I'm going to go back into security, and you can see now when I click on operator IDs, I've got several operators. I also have some new roles. When I go in and look at my bin locations, you'll see we now have a bunch of bin locations, both primary and secondary. Have a bunch of products now entered in. Have some sales orders. And I also have some purchase orders, and I'm going to bring the first one up because I also want to emphasize that this purchase order has transactional information. So you can see that nothing came up because there wasn't any information open, but when I click on include closed, you can see that we've already had 100 of this particular product ordered and 100 received. If I bring up P002, you can see that we've received partials on this one. In other words, we have 250 ordered of this product. We've received 150, and there's 100 remaining. So I already have transactional history built into this data environment, or into our demo environment. Now I'm going to go back into Warehouse Setup, Bin Locations, and I'm going to add a new location. And this is mimicking the fact that now I'm doing a demo, and I'm creating some transactional history. So when I go into my lookup, you'll see that the location I just created is there, and I can bring it back up if I want to. Now I can go in and do some receiving. I can do some product moves, some inventory adjustments, some inquiries. I can do some picking. I can create a whole bunch of transactional history. And then if I want to go back to square one, all I need to do is come back in and rerun the script. And again, you'll see script reran. And now if I go back, into Savant, and I bring up my bin locations and I do a lookup, you'll see the bin location that we created, in fact all that transactional history that we would have created during a normal demo is now gone, and I'm back at square one again. So that's the importance of using a demo script, is that it allows you to constantly be able to refresh your data, go back to a point of origination, and then begin doing another demo again. While having a demo script which resets the data is great, it restricts the demo environment to just that data. This is fine for a generic demo, but what happens when a prospect wants to see specific data unique to their operations? Or you want to show how Savant ADC interfaces into a specific ERP? Or you want to target a specific vertical like food and beverage? There are a few options for these type of scenarios. First, you will need to start with a clean, empty install of ADC, and in most cases, you will need to do some combination of the setup and configuration as well as the data import tools. However, once the initial data is loaded, you can use SQL Server to script off the data, which can then be reloaded just like we showed in loading the Radical Rakes demo data. Creating the script does require advanced knowledge of SQL Server. You can optionally back up the data, giving it a unique backup name, and then restore it later. This process is less complicated than the scripting method, but it will require understanding the SQL backup and restore processes. And you can only do a restore on the same instance or computer where the backup was created. Simply, you can't do a backup on one computer and a restore on another. Both of these options allow you the flexibility to reload and restore unique data sets depending on the type of demo you are doing. Another option is to do the Savant ADC demo environment using a virtual machine. If you aren't familiar with virtual machines, I'll take a minute to explain. A virtual machine, or VM, allows you to run multiple instances of an operating system on a single or shared computer. As an example, this training video was created on a machine that runs Windows 7. However, I used the Oracle Virtualbox to create a Windows 8 virtual machine, and all of the video examples have been using that Windows 8 virtual machine. Let me show you what I'm doing here. This is my Windows 8 virtual machine. However, when I shrink it down, you can see running in the background is my Windows 7 environment. Virtualbox is a free VM environment, and there are others you can use like VMware and Microsoft's Hyper-V. When setting up a virtual machine, you allocate a percentage of your hardware to the VM environment. Let's say you have a laptop with 8 GB of RAM and 1 TB hard drive. During the setup process, you will allocate a percentage of your hard drive, that could be 25 or 50 gigabytes of drive space, and memory, maybe 4 gigabytes of RAM, to the virtual machine. You will then install a new license of the operating system supported by that VM. So what are the advantages to the virtual machine scenario? First, your normal computer is typically cluttered with other software and perhaps conflicting software. The virtual machine provides you with the opportunity to create a clean environment geared specifically to accomplish a specific task, in this case running demos. But even more important, the virtual machine also allows you to take snapshots in time. If I bring up the Virtualbox application, you will see that I have created a few snapshots. In this snapshot, I have the ADC application installed, but no data has been entered. In this next snapshot, the Radical Rakes demo data has been installed, and I can begin a new demo by launching this snapshot. Using a virtual machine, I no longer need to run the SQL script to reload my data. I only need to restore the VM to this state and launch the virtual machine. In a quick and very simple example, I will show you how to create a new demo based on targeting the beverage prospect using the virtual machine scenario. Now the first thing I need to do is I need to close down my currently running virtual machine. And because I'm creating a new demo environment that's not going to use the Radical Rakes demo, I'm going to do a restore of the snapshot to where there's no data installed at this point. So I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to restore this snapshot. Now I'm going to restart the virtual machine. Now remember, we went through a pretty detailed process of loading data. However, if I go now to Savant Adc, and just go into receiving as an example and bring up purchase order inquiry, you can see we're now back to the state where there was no data installed. So I'm just going to go into inventory control and product information and just input in a dummy beverage, and I'll just call it Gem Cola. Going to give it a description. Go to the unit of measure. And save this product. Now if I go to do my product lookup, you'll see there's my new product, Gem Cola. Now I'm just going to log out because typically I would go in and go ahead and do a complete setup and configuration. Set up our bin locations, do the inventory, receiving, and order fulfillment module setups, and all those things that are necessary to get the system operational. But in this case, just because this is an example, I'm just going to log out, and I'm going to close down my virtual machine. Now what I've done is I've created a current state based on this ADC installed with no data. I now have this state. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a snapshot of that state, and I'm going to call it ADC Beverage Demo. So now if I wanted to run just the Radical Rakes generic demo, I could restore this particular state and run that particular demo environment. Or if I wanted to do the beverage demo environment that I just created, I can click and restore this state and run that. So this gives me a lot of power in how I can set up demos and go back and forth and create different environments for different demo environments. The good news is that there are several ways to build a robust demo environment, but doing so does take some planning and time. Before we conclude, let's take a moment to review some key points in setting up your demo environment. First, take some time to plan how you want to structure your demo environment and what data that you want to use. This will help you determine whether to use SQL Server scripts and restores or using a virtual machine. Second, take the time to fill out the pre-installation worksheet and collect the important information, including your computer name, admin username, and password. Third, remember to make sure that Iis Server is installed. Fourth, when installing SQL Server, remember that we are looking for mixed authentication mode and assign the default SA user a password. Fifth, When installing Savant Adc, make sure that you consult the user manual for the correct entry of the computer or domain name along with the administrator's username and the SQL Server name. 6. Create an environment that allows you to reuse data and expand from a solid foundation. Using our virtual example, we were able to build the Radical Rakes demo environment and then from a previously saved state, create a demo environment targeting a specific industry. Finally, if you have any questions during the setup of your demo environment, please feel free to contact me directly at jim.colley@savantwms.com. Thanks again for selecting Savant as your software solution provider. We look forward to a successful relationship. Thank you for viewing the Savant Adc Setting Up Your Demo Environment video. For more information, contact Savant Software at 602-906-3047. You can email us at sales@savantwms.com or visit our website at www.savantwms.com.